Voice training from both teacher and student perspectives has the potential to be highly beneficial and rewarding. Yet, there are times when the early excitement and optimism withers. What contributes to a disappointing conclusion? Is there anything that can be done to improve the voice training experience for all involved? I believe it is possible to improve the experience for both students and teachers. On today's episode of the Voice Science Podcast, let's talk about it. Today's episode was written by Timothy Wilds. One note before we proceed. Even though this episode is largely teacher-focused, I urge students of singing to consume the information and let these observations and suggestions guide you when seeking a teacher and/or working with one. As a voice trainer, I understand the value of the work I am privileged to do. Each time a singer advances to a place they thought unimaginable, it reaffirms my purpose and energizes me. It is an honor to guide others and to help them not only improve their singing, but in many cases boost their self-confidence and self-worth. It is a beautiful thing to witness. However, given the topic of this episode, I am convinced there is ample room for improvement. I would like to discuss what I believe to be the reasons for why the voice training experience collapses in disappointment and a student departing. As ridiculous as it may sound, the most important thing you may need to teach your students is how to be a good student. Teaching them how to sing better and interpret a sheet of music is much easier. I find most students have difficulty visualizing what voice training will entail and the work they will need to do. Is it because there's no instrument to put together or sit behind? Maybe it's because they already kind of know how to sing, so they must be close. Imagine a student uttering these words. Just how much more do I need to do, and is this going to take long? That sentence sums up what all voice trainers are facing today. In order to avoid a disappointing voice training experience for yourself and the student, I suggest two things: clarity and honesty. Give the student clear directives on what to do at home. Help them plan a routine that they can incorporate into their life. Stress to them that undistracted, intentional, bite-sized practice sessions are the pathway. Work a specific skill acquisition exercise for 5 to 10 minutes and move on with your day. Come back to it in 4 to 6 hours to assess how successful you can demonstrate the skill. Keep a log of your progress around acquiring the skill. What I am suggesting is simply commonsensical. How did we learn the alphabet, vocabulary, and the times tables? Through periodic repetition. It's obvious, but the student won't think to do it. You can promise them that if they do it, it will work. Don't hesitate to caution them that if they don't do the work, progress will take even longer, and goals may not be reached. Secondly, tell them the truth. It is going to require the student to sacrifice. Without their commitment, engagement, and determination, the voice training experience can fail. Training is work, but good work. There will be failure moments. There will be triumphs. It requires perseverance. But mostly, it takes time. The time it takes is perhaps a primary frustration for students and teachers. Progress takes the time it needs to take. There are legitimate intrusions that slow the process, like sickness, a natural disaster, or family crisis, and these are unwelcome, but understandable. There are also less admirable reasons why this is true. Every trainer is familiar with students who do nothing between lessons. The no-show students, or those always late, or the on and off student, whose progress is stalled due to school activities, athletics, holidays, and family vacations. As we have heard ad nauseum, these irritations come with the territory. Nevertheless, they do diminish student success and teacher satisfaction. Left unaddressed, they often result in disinterest leading to the student disappearing. A simple fact about teaching is students come and go, and they should. A qualified voice trainer is equipped to diagnose issues, prescribe remedies, and assist students in their application in a timely fashion. Of course, the length of time required varies widely, but helping the student reach the goal as quickly as possible is paramount. It is not only good for the student morale, but it also benefits the reputation of the teacher. Successful students are a teacher's best form of advertising. This is the danger of having too many departing students due to disappointment or discouragement. They usually blame the teacher, not themselves, for the debacle. This is why I recommend that teachers set clear goals and expectations. Do not assume students understand the journey upon which they are about to embark. Most do not. They think all they will do is sing songs. Do they realize that voice training is not just about improving the student's vocal production, understanding how the voice works and what it can do, but also establishing and deepening their musical intelligence, understanding how music works? Achieving these goals takes time and effort, if a level of proficiency is ever to be attained. The exact amount of time and effort depends on a number of things. First and foremost, what are the students' vocal and musical skill levels? Where exactly are we starting? What is their ability to sing a simple song in tune while staying key-centered? Is there any evidence of a vocal production issue or issues that will require a period of therapeutic retraining? In terms of the student's musical literacy, how many of the symbols on a page of music can they decipher? Becoming a better singer is not accomplished singing along with your favorite artist. It happens when a student starts the journey of setting goals and practicing skills in order to reach a level of proficiency that enables independent singing and music making. This is why I generally require a minimum length of stay, 3 months, if you wish to engage in voice training with me. You might describe the initial 90 days of study as probationary or trial period, during which both parties must exhibit a willingness to commit to the work. At the end of the period, both parties assess the experience and, if so agreed, make plans for further study. What I have described may seem excessively stringent, but I am convinced that a period of serious engagement in learning will yield a positive result. Even if they only stay 90 days, they will leave having experienced a difference, if real intentional study was undertaken. What I am suggesting may only seem suitable for adults, but I disagree. Even if a child will benefit from the structure I am recommending. And speaking of children, allow me to share my thoughts about voice training for a person not yet high school age. As a rule, very few elementary and middle school age children are a good candidate for individualized voice training. Yes, there are exceptions. I have had the privilege to teach a few, but they really are a rarity. My conviction on this matter should not be interpreted as dismissive of a child's cognitive abilities. On the contrary, I've successfully taught vocal production basics and musicianship to elementary-age children. My reluctance comes when you consider their age in relationship to the maturation of the vocal mechanism. At 12 years, the voice is barely halfway through the growing and stabilizing process. Even high school age students have to understand their instrument is still developing, which means there will be limitations to what the average high schooler can produce. Rather than jump headfirst into private lessons, I recommend elementary and middle school singers access a variety of musical and vocal exploratory experiences. Membership in a choir or musical theater ensemble are excellent ways to promote their love for singing without the unnecessary pressure of a one-on-one voice training experience. Look for group singing opportunities, not only at school, but also within religious and ethnic communities. community-sponsored music, and arts programs, summer camps, and local music schools and musical theater groups. What I am arguing for is a stepping stone approach. Start with exploratory experiences in a group setting before making the substantial leap to individualized instruction. I think it is essential to say that just because a child says, "I love to sing," it should not be interpreted as, "I want to enroll in voice training." A more accurate translation of the declaration is probably, "I like to sing songs," or "I like to sing along with Taylor Swift." To those I say, go for it. Just remember, singing along with Taylor doesn't require enrolling in voice training. Now, if what they really mean is, "I want to sing like Taylor Swift," that is a clear goal, and one where voice training can be helpful. But a word of caution. If singing like Taylor is actually code for, "I want to be a star like Taylor," the conversation has totally shifted away from voice training. As I have mentioned in a previous episode, I once worked at a music school owned by one of the largest performing arts businesses in the US. In the span of just over 2 years, I worked with nearly 100 students. To have seen that many students suggests a level of coming and going that, in my opinion, is simply too high. Keep in mind that as an employee, I had no say in how many students were recruited, interviewed, and/or counseled through the application process. It is my conviction that those students who had short stays were simply not ready to study. Reasons for being not ready vary wildly, but in my experience, two issues present themselves. The student lacks the maturity and mental focus for one-on-one training, and/or the student is already overcommitted to activities before and after the school day. It would have been better in the long run to have encouraged them to wait until they could make a well-informed and wholehearted investment in the learning process. This, of course, is anathema to a business model that depends on an endless flow of paying students. Here, we see the notion just give the consumer what they want, controlling the process. I will confess that teaching under those conditions was demoralizing. It is why I finally had to stop teaching at the music school. Despite my efforts to do all the things I'm suggesting in this episode, the pushback was wearying. I did have a handful of committed students, and it was a joy to see their progress. But as for the rest, it felt it was retained to be available when they wanted to play singing student. As much as I want to heap all the blame on consumerism for the part it has truly played in weakening the voice training process, I have to have a stern word to all voice trainers, myself included. We have not been vigilant about maintaining the standards that define a singing musician. In my career, I have witnessed and regretfully participated in the malnourishing of a generation of young singers. Either knowingly or not, the larger choral and vocal community has promoted the wholesale diminishment of the singing musician. Standards of vocal and musical proficiency continue to be revised downward, much to the demise of the students. Sadly, it feels like we have given up. If my claim seems hyperbolic, allow me a few examples from my own experience. I was hired to teach choral and vocal courses at a small college, one with a music department that was awarding music degrees. I arrived to discover that many of the music majors could not sight sing. Instead of teaching music majors how to read music, audio files of their choral parts were being created on GarageBand and distributed. At another small college, I was hired to work with musical theater majors, most of whom were not musically literate. The majority of them were utterly dependent on the accompanist recording all their repertoire on their smartphone. This method of learning songs may have gotten them across the finish line, but it did nothing to help them become musically proficient. This was always proven when it came time to learn the ensemble music in a show. Learning 4 to 8 part harmonies took forever. Recently, I was working with a high school student singer who wanted to audition for the select choir at his school. He showed me the audition requirements, and they were impressive, with an emphasis on solfège dexterity. Honestly, I was impressed at what his director was requiring. Upon further questioning, I asked the student, who was already in a non-auditioned choir at the school, how much they used solfège in rehearsals. The answer was none. The accompanist just plays parts over and over and over. These illustrations confirm an alarming truth about teaching music in the 21st century in the US. Most of your students will arrive with a level of musical literacy lower, perhaps far lower, than when you were their age. Two factors that have spawned this crisis is the diminishing of general music education programs in schools and the downturn in the number of graded choir programs in religious communities, particularly churches. When I was a child, these were the seats of vocal music education in society. Sadly, their influence has waned. Yet even as we read the writing on the wall, we as professional music and vocal educators have to call for a return to the standards necessary to create proficient singing musicians. We must do it for the sake of our current and future students and to reignite the fire within us, which, given the current conditions of our industry, may have dimmed our zeal. On today's episode, we considered various reasons for why the voice training experiences can falter or even fail. Taken as a whole, I offer this summary statement. The voice training experience can be improved provided students are trained to be the students they need to be for successful voice training. Students engage in voice training at the right time and for the right reasons. Voice trainers acknowledge how consumerism and weakened state of the music education in the US is affecting the voice training industry, and voice trainers reestablish the standards of the proficient singing musician. No more excuses. If you're a singer looking to become the kind of student Timothy described today, intentional, informed, and ready to do the work, we'd love to help. Sign up for the singing email at voicescience.org/free. It's a 365 lesson journey through voice science, from fundamentals to advanced, and you move at whatever pace fits your lifestyle. It's free, and it's exactly the kind of structured, bite-sized learning Timothy was talking about. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Voice Science Podcast. Until then, keep singing smart.